Welcome to Drawtopia. Today we'll explore a different character drawing style and a different shading technique. Now let's get drawing. Today's video is a little different to my previous ones. What I usually do is draw and talk through each step with you. However, today I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm going to explain how I've created this character and talk you through my steps, fast forwarding through the video, so parts of it might be a little quick for you to follow. So feel free to pause if you like, or watch the video through and then have a go yourself at the end. It's a little hard to see, but whenever I start my process, I use very faint lines and shapes to get the proportion of my character right. So I'm just using circles, rectangles, squares to establish my character, and whatever, in this case he's holding a pumpkin, so there's a little circle in the middle of his body. And once I'm kind of happy with that and I feel it looks the way I want it to go, I then can start pushing harder on the pencil and putting stronger line work in. Now for this cartoon today is another style character where I'm trying to use as much as possible straight lines. So for the head and the bottom of the head, you could just see before I just used straight lines instead of a curved line that we usually do. I have used curves in the hair, but you don't have to. We can do straight lines. I just chose to do it that way for this artwork, but the body will be quite boxy. When I'm drawing my character, I'm simply taking parts of the actual picture. So if you look at the hair and his fringe, there is a little curl in the middle of his forehead, and I've just done the same in my picture. The mouth is just some simple lines that I've drawn in, and where you can see those dark areas, kind of where the dimple areas of some people that have them are, I've just added a little bit of extra pencil there to symbolize that shadow. And I've decided to make my eyes a lot bigger because I like when I do characters that my eyes are bigger. It just looks a lot more cartoony. Once I'm happy with the head and put a little bit of detail in, I'll then start with the body. And again, I'm just using straight lines and following a similar direction to the image. As you can see on the right side, or the boy's left arm, if you look closely at the jumper, it's not a straight line, it kind of creases in a little bit, and I've just replicated that. And then you can see the folds, the shadowing in his arm. Again, I'm just following and looking at that and adding that to my character, and then working on the other side, same step, just looking at the way the picture goes down, then has a little bit of a kink where the jumper folds a little bit. And then I'll work on my hand, and as I was explaining before, with this style of cartoon, I'm not doing rounded fingers, or the tips of the fingers aren't round, they're actually like little rectangles, and I didn't really like the way my hand does. Again, the pencil stage is so great because you can erase it and start again and go over it as many times as you want. But as you can see, I'm just using lots of lines and rectangle shapes to form the fingers of the boy's hand. Once I'm happy, then I go on to the other side, and again using some straight lines to form the hand that's holding the pumpkin, or the cat pumpkin, and just working around that now, and then adding my little fingers, just again with some straight lines. And I've just exaggerated my sleeve a little bit and shorten his wrist to make it, again, just give it a bit more of a cartoony feel. As you can see with the pumpkin, I'm not doing a round circle, I've just done a lot of lines to make the shape of the pumpkin. With the top part, I've decided to change that up just a little bit because I felt it was a little long and very close to the head, so I just made it shorter and curved it off to the right side. And then for the features of the pumpkin, I've just gone ahead and drawn in the eyes, nose and whiskers. So I haven't tried to copy exactly the picture. I've just simplified it a little bit, and I like the way it looks, so I didn't decide to put the mouth in. So you can decide when you draw your characters, no matter what the picture is, you can decide to add or remove whatever you like, because it's your character and it's your design. So now I'm working on my legs, or my jeans I should say, and again just using straight lines and making the shape of my jeans, and wherever I see kind of a dark area or shaded area of the jeans, I'm just placing some kind of colouring in some black shadowing. Then I'm doing my shoes, and I can notice that the sole stands out with that bright orange colour, so then I've just replicated that with some lines, and I've added the velcro straps of the shoe to add that to my character. And you don't have to do that. Again, it's all up to you on how you want to design your character. Then I've added in the other sole, and we're looking pretty good. Now it's just time to go through it and then start adding my shadows and stuff. And as you can see now with the neck, with my shadows and this new technique that we're learning today, is I'm doing diagonal lines. So from the bottom left hand corner to the top right hand corner, and I'm going to try and use those lines through the whole picture. So whenever I want to do a shadow or color in with some shading, I'm going to try and make it a angle line. I'm just adding in those grooves on a pumpkin because it has that kind of line through the skin of the pumpkin, and then I'll go through and add my shadow, doing my diagonal lines, my new shadow technique that we're learning today. And I start very light, and I look at my picture, and as you can see on the bottom left hand of the pumpkin, it's darker to the top and the front of the pumpkin. So that's where I'm adding my lines or my shadow to the picture. And then I notice there's a little shadow under his arm, so I've added that and worked on the middle of, or the inside of his arm. Again, just noting from the photo where the dark and light areas are. And again, as you can see, still just using those diagonal lines, same direction as the beginning. Now I'm using the same line technique, but I'm actually kind of coloring it in. So we're doing a grayscale picture at this moment, and I'm using different shades or pushing harder and drawing softer to try and get the difference between darks and lights. Because the colored shoes are a blue color, I've colored that in, and say for the jumper is white, so I'm not going to color that in, and that will give us our difference in shade of color. So once I'm happy with the shoes, I've gone through and put some lines through the pants, and I think what I'll do is we might color it in today. So I'm going to leave the pants light and color it in with a dark blue later on. Once I'm happy, I've gone back up to the hair, and now I'll add the shadowing to the hair. And this is a bit of a challenge because his hair's quite detailed, but we want to simplify that. So if you look at his hair and you look at, say, the left hand ear, the left side ear, just above his ear and his hair, you can see there's some dark areas there, and then at the top it's lighter in comparison. So I'm just taking those little areas and then putting my diagonal lines and just finding areas where I want. Doesn't have to be exact, and just putting in some faint lines for the moment, and then when I want to get a bit darker, I'll go over those lines and push harder with my pencil and just gradually build up my shadowing until I'm happy with the way it looks. You might find that you're happy with the light colors that I have there now, or if you want to push it further, you can. Again, it's such a great thing to have a pencil because you can keep start from a very faint line and then make it darker as you go, and again we can erase it and start again if we're not happy. Just going to finish up with his eyebrows, and again just some straight lines, some very thin rectangles to symbolize his eyebrows, and then color them in just a little bit, and then just go through and make sure I'm happy with the way it looks, and if there's anything I've missed I'll add in, or if I feel I want to add something in and add my creative license, I will go in and do that. As you can see there, I just changed up the top of the pumpkin a little bit, and then just keep going until I'm happy. Now with this kind of design I would usually just leave this as is, as a pencil sketch. However, today I thought we'll practice with our marker pens, but I want to show you 3 different thicknesses of the pens and show you the difference one character can make and the style that it comes out in with these different thicknesses of pens. As you can see here, I got my light box out and I've decided to trace instead of draw over my character, and what I'm going to do is replicate this character 3 times with 3 different size pens. This pen at the moment, this Sharpie, is a 3mm tip, so it's a little fine compared to what we usually use, which is a 1mm tip, and you can get some details, but not too much compared to a really thin tip. And as you can see here, to differentiate dark and light spots, my diagonal lines are closer when it's darker areas and further apart when it's lighter. So if you look at his jeans look lighter than the shoes because there's less lines that I've drawn. And remember, again, with this style, I've used diagonal lines. So this next pen is a 6mm pen, and it's a little thicker than the 3mm. So we're a little restricted on the detail of this character, and you're going to see that although we're using a black pen, with the 3mm, some areas look a little grey or lighter black because it's a thinner pen. With a thicker pen, everything's going to come out very dark and black. So how I try and make lighter black areas is I've got to make the lines even further apart. So again, if you look at his pants from the 3mm to the 6mm, I've used less lines on the 6mm, and we kind of get a similar shade because the pen is thicker on the right side. Now for the final one, I'm using a 0.1mm pen tip, and this is very fine. So I'm able to draw really thin lines and then go over those lines and thicken it up where I want to. As you can see in the hair, there's some lines that are a lot thinner than the other lines, and we can get a lot more detail out of this. And when we do our shadows and color in our shoes, again using more lines and less lines to differentiate the shadowing, we can create more of a dynamic image. I'm also able, when doing the eyes, with the first 2 you'll notice that I didn't do around the pupil, the colored area, I haven't colored that in because the pen tips were too thick, so I wouldn't be able to get a nice detail like I can get with a thinner pen. You can see now with the 3, the detail from the left is a lot more shades of dark and light compared to the right side, which is a lot more heavier and darker lines. Now it's time to color in our character. As we have the black diagonal lines that represent our shadows, we don't necessarily need to add darker color tones to our character the way we usually do it. For instance, with the hair, we don't need to add some black outlines to add a bit of depth to our image because we have those black lines to represent the shadow. For the character on the right, however, as the lines are slightly thicker and there's less of a difference between the light and dark areas, I'm going to add these color shades that we usually do, and it will give you a bit of a variation to compare and think about when you color in your character. Now we can see the different variations you can get by using different thicknesses of a marker pen on a single character, and also a different way of creating shadowing by using diagonal lines. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video and learnt a new technique, and I'll see you next time.